Direct from Kansas City, it's Comic Book Late Night with Captain Logan! Featuring brand new comic book reviews, thoughts on comic news, obscure character of the week, and a little something from the comic vault. And now, here's Captain Logan!
Hello everyone and welcome once again to Comic Book Late Night. I'm Captain Logan. Tonight is my 5th episode of Comic Book Late Night. I've done this every week in a row for 5 weeks, and I just wanted to say thanks to all of our viewers for watching Comic Book Late Night and making it worthwhile. It's a big undertaking. It's the biggest show I do, and it's a half-hour show. It's a long thing to put on YouTube, and I just want to say thanks to you folks for making it worthwhile. If I didn't have viewers, I wouldn't be doing this, and it's really great. We've gotten a fantastic response to this show. Lots of questions, lots of suggestions for obscure character of the week and things like that. And we're also nearly at 1,600 subscribers now, and that's all thanks to you folks. Thanks also for watching some of our other shows, like Superhero Rewind, Geeks Not Nerds, and things like that. Vince and I thank you from the bottom of our hearts. This has been a great ride so far, and we plan to keep doing it as long as you folks are around and watching. So once again, thank you. And now, I want to ask you a question. Does the idea of a man cave bother anybody but me? This thing has become nearly a cliche at this point, the idea of a man cave. I don't know how this got caught on and how it got popular. You know, your obsessive sports guys who like hold themselves off in a room that they call a man cave, and they have like their awesome leather couch and their big screen TV and their bar and whatever else they have down there. What's weird about it to me, besides the fact that just man cave sounds really stupid, is that comic book geeks get a lot of crap for being antisocial, and most of us don't have a man cave. Like I just think it's kind of odd. Like you get your obsessive sports geeks. Now I'm not talking about like the guys that are more well-rounded and more like you know three-dimensional people that don't fit into like all the stereotypes. Like, stereotypes exist for a reason. There are people who actually fit in these stereotypes. I know we have a lot of viewers who are both comic book geeks and into sports. That's totally awesome. But I'm talking about the guys who like fall like squarely within the stereotype of the sports fanatic couch potato who thinks that comic book fans are all like geeks and nerds that like never get chicks and stuff like that, right? And yet they can hold themselves off in a man cave and not be considered antisocial. Consider this for a moment. Why is it that comic book geeks are decidedly like antisocial, like ill-equipped socially, and get a lot of crap for collecting, for having action figures, for wearing comic book T-shirts, for going to conventions, and yet you get football guys who have like season passes to games, who paint their faces up all weird with the colors of their team, right? And who wear beer hats and have man caves. Like, how is a beer hat any weirder than dressing up and going to a comic book convention? I don't mean like dressing up and going in public like all the time. Like that's kind of weird. But I just mean like going to a function, like to a place for a reason, and then taking it off when you get home. I don't understand how either of these things are any different. And I know a lot of comic book guys who, if they had the money, they would aspire to make their basements look more like a bat cave. And how is that not 100,000 times cooler than a man cave? Like, if you really think about it, this idea is not new. Batman had the first man cave, but he was cool enough not to call it a Batman cave. It was just the Bat Cave. Like, why have a giant big screen TV when you can have 16 of them all layered on top of each other with like a giant keyboard, a revolving thing with your car on it, and not only are you watching the game, but you can also keep up with crime reports and run like analysis on fingerprints. Batman is the coolest guy with a man cave there is. So, noodle that one. Anyway, I've got a great show for you tonight. I'm going to do a brand new segment here after a while. First, going to do some new comic reviews for you, and we're just going to do DC tonight. Got 3 DC books for you, and then we're going to go right off into news. Going to do a new segment, and here they come right now. New comic reviews. Alright, today we're going to start with Batman Beyond number 2. This was a lot of fun. I'm liking the series a lot more than I was in issue 1. We've got Batman fighting the Justice League, and then we've got Batman fighting with the Justice League. And it's a lot of fun to see the back and forth between Bruce Wayne and Terry here, because Bruce seems to just want to fight the Justice League vicariously through Terry. And it seems to kind of go back a little bit to his old days of fighting with the Justice League, where, you know, he's kind of a solo act, but then he helps them sometimes, and he finds himself being with them a lot, and he can't decide whether or not he actually, you know, wants to be a member of the Justice League. And there's some of that going on in this series with Terry, too. Within the mini, there was mention of the Justice League wanting Terry to join them, and he deciding he doesn't want to, so there's a nice parallel there, too, with Bruce Wayne. But here, Bruce is like, no, take him out, you know, you can save your family and these people in the mall all by yourself, and of course the Justice League doesn't think it's within his jurisdiction, and they don't want him to go in, so that's why they end up having this big fight. There's this really smart strategy that Bruce Wayne gives Terry for how to take out the Justice League. You know, how do you take out the Justice League all by yourself when you're just one guy in a superpowered suit? So he says, start with the guy who can destroy the whole universe. And so Terry has to take that guy out really fast. And then there's a part later where that guy starts to wake up, and then Bruce is like, hit him with a batarang and make sure he doesn't get up. And it's a really cool way to get you right into the issue. You know, when on the second page you get hit the guy who can destroy the whole universe. That's a really good way to get you to want to keep reading. And Adam Beechin is great at that kind of stuff. Just, you know, keeping us going every page, constantly trumping himself. And I mean, you know, it's still kind of your typical hostage situation, but with a twist where you've got your superpowered guy who's desperate and dying, and is also now kind of a freak because he's gotten stuck with superpowers from this magic wand. I like the twist of how he kind of blames superheroes for his condition because he worked in a facility where there was all this radiation from superheroes' superpowers. So there's kind of this commentary being played here for how much do superheroes really help, and how much do they hurt just by existing. And also within a Batman comic, because of course Batman doesn't have superpowers, and the Justice League all does, and they all think that they're better at this than Batman is, and they want to solve the problem. They want Batman to stay away. It's all really interesting, and I'm interested to see where the commentary goes. And then at the end, this guy becomes a supervillain, and we get to see his costume and his name, which I won't spoil. So anyway, good stuff. I'm interested in seeing where that goes, and I think it's a lot better than I expected it to be. And now, we've got Detective Comics number 873. Scott Snyder has got me wondering if I was maybe a little bit wrong about Dick Grayson in the Batsuit. And I think it's just because this guy knows how to write Dick Grayson. This is the third issue of this arc with this cult that's auctioning off stuff owned and used by big supervillains in Gotham City. And it's a really haunting story. There's some really creepy and just horrifying imagery in this. And it's also really entertaining and really fascinating. I love Jock's artwork. It helps to make it really haunting. And this ending is unbelievably good. I was really surprised by it. They're auctioning off things like the crowbar that the Joker used to beat Jason Todd with. And then toward the end, the main guy leading all of this I think he's got fear toxin,
And he's got the stuff that Langstrom used to become the Man-Bat, which is cool, because I haven't seen that come up in a while. And he's also got Venom, and you put Venom and the Langstrom toxin together, and he just becomes this really hideous, terrifying creature that fights Dick Grayson toward the end. What's really cool about what Snyder's doing with Dick Grayson in the Batsuit is that he's not just writing him like Bruce Wayne to try to make the thing darker, and he's also not doing this this like really lighthearted kind of Batman, which I personally feel like we were getting a little bit too much of in Batman and Robin. I did feel like Dick Grayson was just a little too happy-go-lucky in the Batsuit. Maybe that's just me. Here, there's a really nice mix of the two, where he still feels like Dick Grayson, but Gotham is changing him. And Gotham seems to be changing itself. And as Gotham is getting even scarier and a more malicious place, it's changing who Dick Grayson is and how he operates, and it scares him. And I think that that's just fascinating. And I love the character development happening here. And the other thing I really like about what Snyder's doing with Dick Grayson is all the circus stuff. When he's in a tight spot, he thinks through everything like he would when he was doing the trapeze acts, and so he has his rules of how to stay alive. It's really smart writing. We're constantly reminded that we're looking at Dick Grayson, but that it's still Batman, and also it's Detective Comics, and it is a really good mystery. And I always want really good detective stories in Detective, and that's what we're getting right now. I can't recommend this series enough. I plan to stick with it. Finally, Brightest Day, number 19. I'm really excited to find out what happens after this, because there's some plants here. There's some questions about whether or not the people who came back from the dead are going to stay alive. And I think that's really interesting, because there's been a lot of fans complaining that even though we have this commentary about death in comics, and so, with Blackest Night and then Brightest Day, and that's kind of neat that we're addressing the fact that so many characters die and get brought back. A lot of people didn't like the fact that so many were brought back at the same time like this. And now there's questions about whether or not it's going to stay that way, because at the end of last issue, the White Ring just disintegrated Hawkman and Hawkgirl after they completed their mission. They saved Hawkworld, and everything was great, and then the curse was broken because Half-Set's gone, and then all of a sudden the ring just disintegrated them because they refused to live separately. Now that the curse was broken, they wanted to be together, and the White Ring said no. And if you're going to be that way, you're gone. And it disintegrated them. So now, at the beginning of this, the White Ring is having this, and it's kind of funny, by the way, seeing a ring argue with someone. The White Ring is arguing with Deadman, because Deadman's like, well, what's the point? Why did you kill them after, after everything they went through? And the White Ring's like, well, it's all part of the plan. And so now we've got this sense that maybe Aquaman's not going to survive, and maybe Martian Manhunter's not going to survive, and there's no way to know what's going to happen at the end of this. And I just love how up in the air it is right now. And that was a curveball for me. I really didn't expect it, and I'm now really interested to see what happens. And Aquaman is trying to stop kind of the evil Atlanteans from coming onto the surface and killing all the humans. I don't know, I guess this is Terrifying Week. There are two here is some terrifying imagery. There's this, I'm not going to give it away, but all I'm going to say is Black Manta's on the cover, and when Black Manta shows up toward the end, that is freaky. There's some crazy stuff that happens, and I'll also say that it's reminiscent of something else that's major in pop culture, and you will instantly think of it as soon as it happens. And I didn't care; it still freaked me out a little bit to see it on a big full page spread. Anyway, I'm not going to give it away. So yeah, I really turned all my expectations on their head, and hopefully it doesn't end in some really tie up bow kind of way. But anyway, now it's time to go on to news. So hey, we finally have a Superman for the Superman reboot, and his name is Henry Cavill. And Henry Cavill is not somebody I really knew because I haven't been watching The Tudors, and that's really the big thing he's been in lately. I really wanted to, I just don't happen to get that channel, so I haven't been. But I should get the DVDs and watch that and see how he is. He's one of the main characters in that. You know, he's such a younger Superman. You know, the first thing I thought of when I saw him, I think he looks actually quite a bit like the new younger Superman in Superman Earth 1. That's what he reminded me of. And the more I'm hearing little things about what this movie is going to be, the more it looks like they're going to go in maybe a somewhat similar direction. I think it'd be fun if they just did Earth 1 as a movie, but but you know, it's so recent, I'm sure that they're not borrowing too much from that. That's what they were going for. You know, they wanted somebody who looked a lot different from Christopher Reeve and Brandon Routh. I have heard from quite a few fans who said that they wished that Routh got to keep going as Superman. And I like Routh. I think he's a good actor. The thing is, I had to see him in something else other than Superman Returns before I could tell that he was a good actor, because I didn't think he got nearly enough to do in Returns, and that he was pretty much just cast because he kind of looked like Chris Reeve and could do a decent Christopher Reeve impression. And I think he could do more Superman. Realistically, I knew there was no chance of it. It's really, really rare that you get the same actor in, a version of something, and then there's a reboot, and then they cast the same actor. That hardly ever happens. And so realistically, I assumed that they wouldn't go there. So I don't know. I knew there was I figured there was probably no chance that we'd get to see Brandon Routh play the part again unless they did a sequel to Superman Returns. Henry Cavill looks really good, and I'm excited about it. I think it's a really great pick so far. We'll see. And then Joseph Gordon-Levitt might be in Dark Knight Rises. So like, are we just going to end up with like the entire cast of Inception in this movie? Is that what's going to happen? No telling yet who he's going to be, but apparently Nolan is thinking about casting him as something. And just so you know, on Sunday, the first trailer for Captain America is going to be on the Super Bowl, as is the new trailer for Thor. And I'll look at those over the weekend and talk about them on the next show. So, watch those on YouTube later when it's posted, or watch the Super Bowl. And yeah, I'm really excited to find out what the first trailer for Captain America is going to look like. All the pictures and everything look great. I am stoked for it. I'm really excited that Henry Stark is going to be a major part of it, and really excited about Red Skull. Anyway, I think it's going to be fantastic. The other thing I want to talk about today for news is Marvel's new Point One initiative. I know I rag on Marvel a lot, but I can't help it. This is ridiculous. I'm going to go as far as to say I think this is kind of stupid. So here's what they're doing. Marvel has this thing where whenever anybody complains about something, they try to fix it in one big fail swoop. You know, people were complaining that they don't do enough cool stuff with women in their comics, and that maybe they're even a little bit sexist toward women in their comics. So they try to answer that whole thing by doing girl comics, and which most people really hated. And they're like, oh nope, see, we're fair to women. We did this girl comics thing. Instead of actually just changing what they do and being cooler with their female characters and with female creators. And that's kind of how they have been operating lately. Well, same thing with this Point One initiative, because people have complained that they change status quo too often, and that it's hard for people to jump on and to keep up with what's going on in their books. So they decided, hey, let's do this big initiative for jumping on points, and we'll have these issues that are point ones. So within the numbering system of each of our major books, we're going to have like point one. So you just had Iron Man 500. This week, Iron Man 500.1 came out. And what those are supposed to be is you're supposed to be able to pick up point one and read it, and now you can jump on. Now you know enough of what's going on that you can easily move on and read what's going on. Now, here's the thing. I haven't read any of them, so I don't know if they're actually good at that, but I immediately resist the idea of a bunch of jumping on points all at once for a couple of reasons. First of all, it seems to me like you can't be certain that every single one of these characters, wherever they happen to be, that you can have a good jumping on point for them right now. Just because you do an issue with a bunch of rehash explaining everything that's been going on, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be easy for a person to jump on and read that. I think last year, I talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think last year Iron Man number 25 was a really good jumping on point. It was the end of one big giant arc, and it was the beginning of a new one. And it was kind of the aftermath of things that were going on. And with an aftermath, you can kind of have a breather where you're learning about where if you didn't read what happened before, you're learning about what happened while the character is trying to get over it and move on with their lives. And that's why that was a good jumping on point. DC had a bunch of good jumping on points last year after Blackest Day was over, or after Blackest Night was over. With the beginning of Flash and Green Arrow and Birds of Prey, because they were all Brightest Day tie-ins. They were also all number ones, and so new folks jumping in. I mean, a lot of those were books I had never read, and I started reading them and was just fine with them. So you start a series over like that, and I'm not saying we should start a series over constantly, but like right there. People could get in, and because so much was going on after Blackest Night, since that was kind of a chapter that had ended, and you had kind of a new chapter starting, these were all really good places to start fresh and get into characters. Suddenly doing this point one thing strikes me as strange, because if somebody hasn't been reading these characters and they just go into a store, do you really think that adding 0.1 to your numbering system is going to get them to jump on, is going to get them to read these things? I think it's confusing. I think it's really confusing. Especially with Iron Man, because Iron Man was at, I don't remember what number it was at, 33, 34, and then they jumped ahead to 500. They messed with the numbering system, which is another thing that sometimes irritates me. So you play with the numbering system, you go from 30-something to 500, and now you have 500.1. And so, I don't know, I kind of think that it's unlikely that you're going to get new people to read these as jumping on points. First of all, they have to kind of already be reading to see your ad to know that that's what those are for. And weird numbering just confuses new readers. So I don't know. I think it's a bad idea. I also wonder what they're doing with pull lists and with people who are already reading those series, because it's part of the numbering system. So, like, is it new story or is it just mostly Backlash? Somebody tell me, because I'm not reading them. But what I wonder is if people who are going to comic book stores, and they have pull lists, if they are having to buy these issues too, and if it's not new story, that's not fair. That's just an extra issue. Like, why not just publish a bunch of one shots and do effectively the same thing? Well, anyway, that's the news for today. Alright, how about a trivia question? Today's trivia question is, what is the costumed alias of the Kryptonian known as Jur-Lee? Kryptonian known as Jur-Lee. If you think you know the answer, leave it in the comments below, and I'll be sure to mention the first person who gets it right in next week's show. Last time, the trivia question was, Christophe Bernard is the adopted son of what Marvel supervillain? The answer, of course, was Dr. Doom, and that was first answered correctly by the Moonwalker696. Congratulations to you. Well done. And like I said, don't forget to put in the answer to today's question in the comments. And now it's time for a brand new segment I like to call Useless Knowledge to Cram Your Brain With. Did you know that there was actually a Superman Red, Superman Blue decades before the Superman Red, Superman Blue in the late 90s? As you probably know, Superman turned into a being of pure energy around 97, 98 and ended up with that hideous costume. And he was split into two different beings by the cyborg Superman, each thinking he was the original. One was Superman's brains, and one was his brawn. Well, in 1963, Superman Red and Blue were created for what was then known as an imaginary story, meaning one that wasn't part of mainline continuity, kind of like Elseworlds, in Superman number 162. In that issue, Superman builds a machine powered by different colors of kryptonite to increase his intelligence so he can figure out how, among other things, to restore the Bottle City of Kandor. It works, and he's made super intelligent, but it also splits him into Superman Red and Superman Blue. They fix everything. They fix Kandor. They go on to solve most of the world's problems, including creating an anti-evil ray, which not only cures Lex Luthor and other famous villains of being evil, but it also cures Fidel Castro. And now that there are two of them, Superman can marry both of the girls of his dreams. Blue gets Lana, and Red gets Lois. It was such a genius idea, no wonder it came back. Today's Obscure Character of the Week is brought to you by the DB. The DB, because in our fast-paced world, Daily Bugle just takes too long to say. Have you ever heard of Zax? First appearing in The Incredible Hulk number 166 in 1973, and co-created by Steve Englehart, you know, the guy who claims to have created the definitive Batman for coming up with Silver St. Cloud, Zax is a humanoid energy being created accidentally after the sabotage of a nuclear power plant, absorbing the minds of some of the terrorists and engineers. It's first defeated by Hulk and Hawkeye, but repeatedly shows up after that until it's finally captured by S.H.I.E.L.D. Thunderbolt Ross has his mind transplanted into the entity for a while to battle Rick Jones, but leaves it when he realizes he's risking lives by being a giant, scary energy being. It's also fought Iron Man and Cable, and most recently was captured and contained for S.H.I.E.L.D. again by She-Hulk. If you have an idea for Obscure Character of the Week, or a question you'd like me to answer on the show, fan art you'd like me to show off, or anything like that, feel free to send me a personal message over Geekvolution on YouTube. And now, let's find out what nifty piece of history I've pulled out for us this time on the Comic Vault. Today on the Comic Vault, we're taking a look at Marvel Team Up number 58 with Spider-Man and Ghost Rider. Marvel Team Up was usually a one-shot issue that paired 2 or 3 Marvel characters together and often featured Spider-Man. This one is pretty much one long fight between Spider-Man and Ghost Rider versus the Trapster. Now, I'd never read anything with the Trapster before, sometimes known as Paste Pot Pete, and I had no idea how lame he was. A member of the Frightful Four, and later I think he's even been with the Sinister Six, the Trapster's main weapon is a gun that shoots paste, and he seems really proud of it. What's fun about this issue is that even while Spider-Man and Ghost Rider spend the whole thing trying to take the Trapster out, they can't stop talking about how ridiculous he is, especially without his partners in crime. Spider-Man even says, as a solo act, you're as much a loser now as when you were Paste Pot Pete. Even in a relatively insignificant story, Chris Claremont is a stickler for continuity. There are several footnotes noting previous issues, and he tells us the last time Spider-Man and Ghost Rider met, and gives us background about what happened after the Frightful Four's last encounter with the Fantastic Four, and how they escaped from the police. The Trapster decides to go on his own to settle a score with Ghost Rider, and it's kind of a cheesy contrivance. He says he wants to get back at Ghost Rider for, quote, spooking him in LA. It's your basic, fun, kind of silly, but often clever 70s Marvel story, with a lot of nicknames. Ghost Rider, of course, is referred to a lot as Flame Face, and a moral lesson at the end, even though the rest of the issue hardly seems to warrant one. Though the ending is actually the best part, Spider-Man won't let Ghost Rider hit Trapster with his Hellfire, because they're on an aircraft carrier with nuclear weapons. So instead, Ghost Rider violently attacks Trapster's mind with his Hellfire, and makes him let out a scream that really freaks Spider-Man out. Spider-Man says, I hope you can live with yourself, pal, because what you are isn't very nice. The idea of Ghost Rider reconciling being a spawn from hell and fighting evil was an idea I wish the issue had focused on a lot more. There's also a really clever line that just barely misses breaking the fourth wall toward the middle of the issue, when Trapster utters the unbelievably stupid line of, "You broke my paste line, but that's impossible!" To which Spider-Man replies, "So are guys who crawl up walls, not to mention Human Torches, Asgardian gods, werewolves. Man, the whole world is impossible. That's why living in it is so much fun." Well, that's all the time we have for you tonight. I'd like to thank Pop Culture Comics, where I got my comics this week. If you're ever in the Kansas City area, be sure to check them out in Overland Park, Kansas. Don't forget to support your local comic book store wherever you happen to live. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, just creating a different version of your character with some other color doesn't necessarily make it a fresh or original idea. Thanks again, I'm Captain Logan, signing off.